Go ahead.
Well, here, if the question is, what are their strengths? It is none of the strengths that I saw are what I have read about, right? They're
Correct.
not the technological leaders that
No.
Tom Friedman says that they are, based on our empirical, anecdotal 1 week of experience.
Close enough.
The big question about what kind of competitor they're going to be is their talent versus our talent. And what they've been trying to do hard is bring people back. And that's where the
We saw that.
decided first, which is liquidity and capital. That's what they're trying to do. We did see it. We did meet a lot of talented people. But at the end of the day, if you come over here to get your higher degree, and you get used to breathing clean air, and you start thinking about where you want to raise your kids, it's hard. We talked to American executives who live there about what they do with their kids to protect them from this pollution, and they said we keep them inside.
Share with them the conversation we had that you had with the gentleman who's the head of Bannon Arc.
Yeah, I asked him because he's got kids same age as mine, and I said, "What do you do? How do you let them breathe this air?" Not that that's not a question for a Chinese person raising children there too, but not all of them have the option of living somewhere else. And I mean, you see Chinese people also driving on their moped with their 4-year-old on the back without a helmet. I mean, there's just they're not where we are. And he said I keep them inside when the air is on. I just don't let them go outside. I keep them inside with filter air. That is not going to get people to come back to China when they're thinking about where they want to live. So one more point. Talent is the question mark, because they got a lot of talent, but they can't keep it. And the question is, can they get it back? And I think they're going to struggle with it because of the unsustainability of it. The one big asset that I do know they have is a sense of national purpose. They have a powerful sense of purpose about what they're building at. They have much greater disparities in wealth than we do. But they have managed to subordinate the natural tension that would cause to a sense of nationalistic growth. And they feel like this is their century. And so they are kind of pointing in the same direction. And that has so far allowed them to overcome the fact that they have no due process rights, they have no private property rights, that they shut down people's factories and tell them to move, and everybody subordinates themselves to this national sense of purpose. That I don't believe that is sustainable, but that is their competitive advantage. Right?
Well, and as Texans, we have an understanding of that.
It's true.
But let me just respond to the Anadarko meeting, because one of the things that those executives said when we posed the question, is it worth it, right? I mean, the air quality is horrible. You know that your Chinese partners are going to try to appropriate your intellectual property at some point. And he said, hey, we're a drilling company. This is what we do for a living. And there are many parts of the world where we're not allowed to drill anymore. We can drill here. And so that's what we do, and that's why our people are here. I think we have to be sensitive to that. Not only is national pride and China speed and a lot of capital available over there, but they'll allow you to do what it is that your company has always done.
In that regard.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to play into, to some extent, who the leaders are and where the next level of energy technology is built, where the manufacturing occurs, where that technology is bolted together and shipped to the place where it's going to be put in place. Is you look at these new advances that are going to require, they're going to be more sophisticated, they're going to have more requirements for greater control. We're going to have to squeeze every bit of energy efficiency out of that process, which therefore means you have to have very tight control parameters. And my concern is we see a lot, frankly, with some of the wind generation equipment, is manufacturing in the U.S. at this point does not have a lot going for it. Because if you look at the things that are stacked against us, we compete with the labor market, and certainly China, with their numerous people and the low wages, can compete hands down, as a number of other countries can as well. And then you look at the environmental regulations, the cost of energy, and all those that we see that are impending to escalate dramatically. All of those suggest to me that companies that are looking to manufacture high-tech technology that will be useful for developing, creating, and producing the next technologies, energy technologies, are going to be enticed to locate overseas, at least for the manufacturing component of those. And I think that's a missed opportunity as we see that we continue to, on purpose, increase the cost of energy in Texas and the United States. We make it even more difficult to get and attract technologies that require manufacturing that are energy intensive to locate here. And with all of the other obstacles, it's going to be very difficult to bring those back. And I think that's something that, as I spoke to earlier, instead of suggesting that the right approach is to make the carbon-intensive energies more expensive so that we'll be forced to find something else, we should be using the resources we have and incentivizing the development of greater efficiencies and new technologies, using those to carry us forward as leaders in that role, which would also position us well with those new energy sources to also be the manufacturers of that new technology, so that we not only affect the emissions in the United States, but we create technologies that are more energy efficient, more cost effective, so that they can then be exported elsewhere. Because if we look at the whole paradigm behind greenhouse gas control, the big obstacle for any of those having any kind of meaningful global reduction is that, as I like to use the balloon analogy, if we squeeze that balloon in Texas or the United States, it bulges out elsewhere because other countries are more than happy to have those emissions as well as the jobs and the economic development that goes along with that. If, however, we can incentivize and develop technology that's more cost effective and has lower emissions of greenhouse gases and hopefully also more lower emissions of the pollutants I have concern with, those that lead to NOx, those that are hazardous pollutants and what have you, those then self-perpetuate. You develop a technology that's more energy and more cost effective, you don't have to force people to use it. They'll come to your door and say, please sell me your technology. And that's where I think this state can be a leader, is incentivizing the development of those new technologies instead of saying, let's hamstring ourselves so that we are forcing ourselves to find something new that we probably won't be able to afford to get because we've cut our economy out from under us, and then we won't be able to manufacture it here because energy here is too costly.